we go. All right. Welcome. Still a few people coming in. Jason Murphy, Rebel Dharma, Wednesday night. Glad you guys are here. And those of you online. Yeah, my hope for today is to continue the discussion that we began. I don't think we really fleshed out the work of the second noble truth. And so we'll meditate for a bit, and then I'll talk a little bit more about this second noble truth. I'll review for some of you who weren't here last week, and then we'll go from there. So let's go ahead. Is there anyone new in the room or on the Zoom that wants to introduce themselves? Okay. All right. So this theme of, I've been working with it for a while, and it came up last week, this theme of let go, let be, or let in. And I'm going to touch back on it in more of the topic, but not necessarily in the meditation. I think last week, was it last week? Yeah, last week we did, and we've done that for a few weeks now, and really working with this concept of letting go of maybe that which is distracting, that which is hindering, letting go of perhaps the past, even just the intention to let go of what arises in the mind that's not present time experience. And then letting be, this could be in the kind of the feeling realm. This could be in the what arises while we're focused on the present time, and really letting that be, giving it some space, some openness, and then letting in. The concept of letting in can be, literally from the outside in, letting in positive qualities. There was some discussion about kind of, it could feel like reaching, but generally it's letting in our own internal, so kind of like maybe resorting to compassion or gratitude, and trying to kind of build the resource for letting in positive qualities, our own positive qualities. Also could possibly be positivity that is out in nature. Not even just positive, just this idea of kind of letting in maybe what's needed. So we'll use that as a loose theme tonight, and we'll touch back on it. But I think, everyone here has some practice, some meditation practice. And so we're just going to go with sitting and being. And I'll give a little bit of instruction, but not a whole lot. And really, I want to allow you to choose your own adventure, So, within the Vipassana kind of context, present time experience, this is generally what's suggested, to bring our awareness again and to kind of strengthen the support of resting in whatever's happening in our minds, in our bodies. And so applying both effort and a sense of acceptance, or this kind of letting go and letting be. And so also with that, I would say, there's three main cues, meditation objects that we can utilize. There's actually four, but so I'll say all four of them, and then you can kind of choose. The first being breath. this kind of awareness of the experience of breathing, whether it's the tip of the nose or the rise and fall of the belly. Sometimes people focus on the chest expanding and contracting. So that would be one place to rest attention. The second place would be sound, this kind of comings and goings, rising and passing of generally external sound, but there actually is possibly some internal sound as well. And varying people have varying attunement to that. And then the sensation of the body. So generally having a awareness, either very specifically like we've done before with the touch point, or a kind of sweeping awareness of this body sitting here in space and time. And then the fourth is what we call repeated, or what I call repeated phrase, or sometimes we call them heart practices, right? But the repeated phrase, and that can be it doesn't have to just be like, may I be happy, may I be peaceful. It can be calm, relax, right? Or to use a very traditional Thai forest phrase, bu do, which is basically awake. So that's a fourth option. All right. So the hope is that you pick one and you try to stay with it. Right. So even though the attention will wander off, because it does, that you will return to whatever you've already, as I've described them, perhaps you've already kind of, I think I'll go with this one, or maybe we'll just take a moment and kind of make a kind of a commitment to whether it's sound or body or breath or repeated phrase, to just kind of choose one as an anchor, as a place to return to. All right. Any questions about any of that before I'm just going to ring some bells and give a little bit of instruction? Okay. Let's go ahead and find a posture that's workable, that's sustainable, where you can feel relaxed and alert. So as I said before, I'm not going to give a lot of instruction, just a little instruction, and then maybe I'll actually just ring the bell. Can you guys hear the bell? Can you hear that? No, they can't hear. That was pretty loud, right? Yeah. It's clearly not a. Let me just make a little adjustment here. Background speech. All right. So I will, that might work better. I'll do what I can. I'm actually not trusting that the bell's going to work. So I'll just give some light instruction. All right. So settling in and taking a moment. And just setting an intention of which anchor, which meditative object you will return to or rest. recognizing whenever the attention wanders off. And with that sense of friendliness or kindness with the mind, aiming the attention back again and again. Resting in this present time experience with a sense of curiosity, openness, acceptance, and love here and now.
If you haven't already, for the last few minutes of this sit tonight, the invitation is to perhaps let go of the meditation object and rest in an open awareness, a choiceless awareness, where there might be a sound. You temporarily bring your attention to the sound, then perhaps a breath, then perhaps a sensation in the body, all within the observation of this present time experience. That's the invitation.
Right. So I thought instead of me just opening up for questions, that maybe we'll turn into some small groups. So perhaps get in groups of 3, and then Shannon will put you in whatever group number seems appropriate. We'll just give it just like 2 or 3 minutes. We'll be a minute each. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind just kind of turning into whatever groups of 3, or you guys can even just be in one big group. It's up to you.
Right.
All right, guys, we'll see you in a minute. Just I didn't say what you're grouping about. The experience, that last 30 minutes. All right, guys, let's just give it another minute. All right.
Because they say jury sounds good. Stuff like that. Started.
All right. It's like we're coming back. I apologize for those of you in the groups. I thought I had a co-host, which I forgot to assign one. So it took a few minutes for me to realize that no one had assigned you groups. So I apologize. I think we're all back now. No harm, no foul. Okay, so thoughts, reflections, questions about the meditation instruction or lack thereof, the what came up for you, what perhaps you share in the small group, and those of you that weren't and didn't get to a small group or didn't have time to share in the small group online, you can please feel free to ask questions or speak up. Nothing? Yeah, go ahead.
We had a similar experience of monkey mind being pretty active, fresh out of work.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to find ways to be like, I guess, kind of compassionate, normalizing that, well, that's what the mind does. Like judging it,
Mm-hmm.
but we're all noticing like they're like, like breath, and then off to other things, planning, and then after a while, kind of like settling down, kind of like coming down, nervous system settling, and then starting to drop in. And I had experience of like really getting tired, and I ate a lot before this too, because I think I was also digesting. But I was just trying to be with these different like fluctuations, super amped, almost falling asleep. So there's lots of different weather patterns going on with the brain.
Okay,
Trying to be with it.
great. Sorry, I'm just kind of trying to mess with the audio, but I totally was with you. Just my eyes weren't. Anyone else? Yeah.
So I tried the awake
Mm-hmm.
thing. I've never done like a mantra kind of thing before. And it was new. I wasn't, as I started doing it, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't know what I'm doing. So I was like, okay, should I repeat it? Like, okay, I'll repeat it on the in and the out breaths. Like, and I couldn't remember the Thai term. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just go to awake. So I was like, awake. Like, no, it took me a while to figure out.
Find a rhythm with it.
Yeah. And then, so I was doing that, and then I'm like, wait a minute, why am I awake? What am I awaking? Is this like a prompt for me to be aware? Or am I like just playing with the word and see what the word feels like? Or, so there's this whole give and take kind of going with that too. And I ended up just settling with it being sort of a prompt to be what we kind of did at the end, like all awareness. So being awake to whatever was happening.
Yeah.
Which was good.
Okay. Yeah. The term is Budo, or Budo. And yeah, I didn't give a lot of instruction on that. I mean, I'm glad you worked with it and went with it, and then also switched to, like once you just switched to the English version of it. But it is interesting to play with boo and do on like inhale, boo, exhale, do, or just boo do with one full breath. But there's no, I think it also interesting just to see the what was happening in the mind, and then the moments of reflection of like, oh look, I'm wrestling with this word and like what's the rhythm, and so I moved into thinking about the word and what's its meaning and what's my intent, you know what I mean? It's like, and then it's, oh yeah, back to awake or hear or Buddha or any one of those things. It's just kind of sometimes it could be both. The word could be helpful, but it also, we don't want to grasp onto it. You're right. You're just using it as a tool. And then just to comment on what you said, Carlos. Yeah, I mean, so just it's the same thing, right? And I think when there's less instruction, which is kind of why I was trying to do this, there's more awareness of the busyness or the kind of settling that can happen in the mind, or just the reality of the stark raving madness of our everyday mind, right? Yeah. Anyone else? Go ahead, Mike.
I think with the Buddha mantra, I guess I found myself using it to try to just watch, like be awake and watch whatever was coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was drowsy or tipping, I'm drowsy and tipping. If there's like if sensations are pleasant, they're pleasant. If it's unpleasant, it's unpleasant. Just kind of like being the witness, like with it. And I don't know, I actually was happy you put that in the space, because that's something that I've found some benefit with and used it a lot. And it's just something that helps me kind of witness what's going on and not try to get born into it, not try to ruminate or proliferate, but just kind of like, I don't know, just witness things and try to witness them like without judgment, just be kind with it. So I don't know, I was just glad you put it in the space.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and then when we recognize that we are, kind of getting technical or starting to get into the thinking mind, then we let go of that. Then we're just aware of that as well. It's not a place of like, oh, I'm doing it wrong or I messed up, or regardless of what it is, whether it's sleepiness or, I mean, this is that, I think that is the awake. I think that's the intention, at least in when I learned this technique from I read it in a book from Ajahn Chah, and then heard Ajahn Sumedho talking about it, or Longpo Sumedho talking about it. This idea of using this phrase or just being that it's an invitation, it's intention to be aware of what is, which is kind of where you landed, right, Frank? And so you too, with this kind of Mike, with this understanding of the observer or the one that is. That's some of the ways it's just like the one that is. It's not the me, it's just the one that is aware, or we could call it the part that is aware. But yeah, all good. Any other kind of thoughts or reflections, questions about the instruction? All right. Well, let's go ahead and I'm going to kind of recap on the topic of the second noble truth. So last week, and really, I've been kind of working through some themes, but I used a quote from Ajahn Amaro. Ajahn Amaro is one of the kind of senior monks and teachers in the Thai forest tradition, in the Ajahn Chah tradition. And he had this translation, and I was trying to think about where I even saw it, I don't know, I've read so many of his books, and so I'm not sure where I actually found it, but I just really love this translation from the Sanyutta Nikaya, and it's the second noble truth, right? So it says, this, monks, is the noble truth of the cause of suffering. It is that craving, compelling, intoxicating, which causes us to be born into things again and again, ever seeking fresh delight, now here, now there. It is namely the craving for sensual delight, the craving to be something, and the craving to feel nothing. And so last week, I kind of talked a little bit more about craving, attachment, grasping being the kind of root of what the Buddha is talking about in the second noble truth. The cause of suffering is craving. And then this is a further description of that, different ways in which we crave, right? So there's the three kinds of desire, the craving for sensual pleasure, the craving to become someone, or the craving to get rid of, right? And so we kind of talked a bit about the sensual pleasure piece last week. And just to say, when we talk about sensual pleasure, we're talking about all the pleasures of the senses: smelling, seeing, touching, tasting, hearing, and thinking that which is pleasing. And that there is a natural inclination towards keeping that going. And there can be attachment or grasping on top of that. So one of the ways to do that is to reflect, or to work with that is to reflect on eating. When you're eating, when we eat, we're generally eating, there's a pleasurable sensation. Now, not for everyone, but for some particular people, they're going towards seeking more and more pleasure from food, or from not only the nutrient experience, right, but also the tastes and the smells and the sights. And it can be a very sensual experience, So that can be a place to just begin to kind of reflect on where is our tendency? Is our tendency towards sensual pleasure, or is our tendency towards becoming? This kind of idea of being somebody, becoming, right? So we get caught in the realm of ambition and attainment, the desire to become. This is, I think, something that definitely happens, here in the States a lot. We get caught up in this movement, striving to become happy, or seeking to become wealthy, or to make our life feel important by endeavoring to make the world right. So there's this kind of if I can, just orchestrate my life in such a way, then I'll be happy, and these are all different forms of what the Buddha is talking about as becoming. So to note that this is all an attempt to become something other than what we are right now. And this, I feel like it just kind of drops the bottom out of it when we recognize, and I've known, maybe you've known, people who are extremely wealthy and super down, super depressed, or not satisfied, or people who have the a very promising career, or they're very fulfilled in one area of their life, but then there's still a lack. And so this is just kind of pointing to that kind of need to become. And then there's also the becoming that happens around practice, right? I want to practice meditation so I can become free from pain, or I can become enlightened, or I want to enjoy these pleasures without having to give up anything and still become enlightened, right? So there's this attachment to some particular aspects of becoming. And then the other side of that is getting rid. So this be somebody or be something or feel nothing, which is the last part of the quote. And so this idea of getting rid of. So if it's not grasping, it's aversion. It's getting rid of when we get disillusioned with trying to become something. And I think I've seen this a lot, actually. I've seen it with like tech people who like have startups and make tons of money, and then they don't necessarily give it all away, but then they just like leave the business and they go do something that's like their passion, like making documentary films or something like that, as a way of, okay, I don't I'm giving up on the becoming, or maybe they felt like they reached their goal and they still weren't satisfied. So then they gave it all up and went to this other furthest extreme and start to kind of get rid of things. Just one example, but I want to get rid of my suffering, right? Or I want to get rid of my anger or my jealousy or my fear or my anxiety or my trauma, right? There's this kind of first it's maybe I want to become something different, and then the other side of it is maybe I want to get rid of these aspects. So from the Buddhist perspective, instead of trying to get rid of, we're really acknowledging it. It's like this right now. It's like this. Pain is like this. Pleasure is like this. Desire is like this. Suffering is like this. So turning toward and acknowledging it. It feels like this is what we want to get rid of, right? We want to get rid of something, but really the turning toward or the being with is so much of what this practice is really rooted in. So just some other examples. I want to get rid of or conquer my desires, right? This is just another craving. It's just another wanting. I want to conquer my desires, letting go of desire. This is a process. It's a process of seeing clearly. And allowing it to be a part of ourselves, or without rejecting or grasping, right? So this, this is one of the differences. I think there's some confusion sometimes between craving and desire. And so in Tanha, Tanha is craving, unquenchable thirst, grasping. And then kusala or akusala, there's two terms in Pali, the Buddha's language, to talk about desire. And it's basically wholesome and unwholesome desire. Unwholesome desire leading to craving. Wholesome desire leading to freedom, or leading to like a non-grasping. So letting go of desire, seeing it clearly. It's not helpful to beat ourselves up around our desires or our cravings. It's instinctual. It's part of this process, but instead being with, seeing it unfolding. From the Buddhist perspective, and I would agree in my kind of investigation, is that so much of our suffering, if not all, is tied up in craving and desire. And when we're kind of caught in some what can be a cycle of unwholesome desire leading to craving. But we can also get this like just like beating ourselves up about when we have desire, when we have craving, or even things that we've acted out in ways that were unskillful, and then there's this overwhelming, there can be shame, or there can be guilt around that. So it's not about identifying with the craving, but it's about recognizing that desire arises and desire can pass away. And some desire is wholesome and skillful and leads to freedom. And some desire is entangling, is unskillful and leads to craving and grasping. And this is one of the great insights that comes from meditation practice, as we begin to kind of suss out for ourselves. Each one of us has to do this work for ourselves of seeing, oh, okay, is this entangling or is this freeing? Is getting caught in a mental fabrication or spinning out in some kind of story of replaying a past event or anticipating a future event, right? Or just as an example, when we can recognize that, okay, we're in that either past or future, and then turning the awareness to it and saying, is this entangling or is this freeing? And just asking yourself that, Yeah. So then the other aspect is letting go, right? So grasping is suffering, and letting go, if we can listen to our desires with wisdom and not craving, they can lead to great insight. So how do we not feed the desire, but allow them to arise and pass away? So this, in some, like in dialectical behavioral therapy or DBT, or in mindfulness-based relapse prevention, this is called urge surfing, right? So I think this meditative practice, and even the practice that we just did, this kind of choiceless awareness, or choosing whatever point you want to with little instruction, really allows you to begin to kind of see those tendencies towards grasping or aversion, or trying to push away, or following or chasing desire. At least it's been helpful for me, So yeah, so it's more like setting them down and letting them be, rather than getting rid of, or even letting go. Like sometimes, this is where the let go, let be, let in it comes into play. Because sometimes letting go isn't possible. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's very easy. Sometimes, as we talked about before. And then the shifting to, okay, well, can I be with what this experience is? Can I just allow it to be here? And that's where the urge surfing kind of comes into play. We're just kind of letting the wave pass, by hopefully staying grounded in some present time experience of breath, body, sound, or even a phrase. And that this letting go, this isn't an intellectual process. So much of Buddhism gets characterized as an intellectual process. And from, my personal experience, but also from my study, the Buddha meant it as anything other than that. That yes, we have to use our kind of top-down processing and understanding, but really the freedom comes from the experiential awakening that takes place. When we can, not just understand what it means to let go or let be or let in, but when we experience it, and that we experience the freedom that is connected to that. Yeah. And this could be moment to moment, and it's not a one and done also. There's more, but I think maybe I want to open up for some thoughts or questions, comments before I move on? No? Okay. Because there's more. So in unpacking the, what did I just do? So in unpacking this, kind of letting go process, it's a dance. It's a dance of selfing versus kind of not selfing. So selfing is a term that Gil Fronsdale taught me some years ago. Gil Fronsdale is a teacher in Northern California. And it's the idea of when we kind of are layering, like quite literally layering identity upon ourselves. And we start to kind of really inhabit our layers of self, like this is me. And there is a sense of, a false sense of stability with that, which is why we're constantly doing it, because it helps us to feel more secure. And it's not bad to feel secure, but it's not the whole truth. So this not self is the concept of just, kind of just like what happened with the choiceless awareness, like letting go of the identification with a particular meditation object, right? Maybe you were able to do that to varying degrees. And that can be very freeing, but also can be scary at times. So this kind of letting go of the identification, even with our thoughts, believing that our thoughts are us and not just blips of energy that are based on causes and conditions from past, But the identification with them definitely creates a layer of self. So this is one of the things that this process, letting go process, can help. So but wait, personal problems or things that we obsess on, I can't just let go of them. Really, is grasping to them helpful? Is grasping to these, the things that we identify as self helpful, or is it hurtful? Like I said before, is it entangling in a web of judgment or analyzing, or is it freeing? Is it relieving a burden? Does it feel like, if we can let go of the identification, which I know that you have to some degree, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be tuning in, you wouldn't be showing up every week, right? So, yeah. So when we're really calm and peaceful, then we will find that there is no attachment to anything. When we're able to kind of get to this, one of my teachers, Ajahn Pasanno, would say the resting state of the mind is at ease, is calm and peaceful. Ajahn Chah would say like a still forest pool, weather, or, like if you're hiking out in the forest and you see, a pond, not a pond that is undisturbed, it's clear. And then yet there might be, animals, or there might be weather that comes and disturbs the pool. But given enough time, it will settle again. And so that both Ajahn Pasanno and Ajahn Chah were basically talking about this experience, that's what this meditative kind of let go, let be, let in can help to facilitate. So when we're not caught up in trying to get something or get rid of something, the well-being is just knowing things as they are without feeling the necessity to pass judgment upon them. And the more that we contemplate and investigate desire and craving, the more insight arises. Desire should be let go of, which is, one of the aspects of each noble truth, is seeing the craving, knowing that it's present, seeing the arising of it, and then seeing the letting go. So then through actual practice and understanding, what we're letting go of really is that we can gain a third insight. The third insight is that desire has been let go of. So recognizing, oh, there is a letting go of desire or craving in this. It's not theoretical letting go, it's a direct insight. Yeah. All right. So any thoughts, questions, comments?
How would you compare letting go with acceptance?
Yeah, I would say they're the same to some degree. I think sometimes it's kind of a tricky. That's a great question. So letting go versus acceptance, like what would like how would I compare them? Is that what you're kind of saying? And what I think immediately is that letting go and letting be both are kind of acceptance, different levels of acceptance. Because especially with this whole theme, letting go isn't getting rid of, it's just letting go of the attachment. But we're not trying to push it away. We might let something go, let's say a thought. Right? We might let the thought go, but it doesn't mean it's going to actually leave. But the act of letting go is kind of accepting that it's here and that we're not going to attach to it. So there could be some letting be happening there as well. Yeah. So I guess acceptance is the opposite of needing to get rid of, to me. Yeah. So I used a phrase in the instruction, one of the few phrases that I gave during the guided meditation. It's called Cole. So it's kind of approaching practice and approaching others with a sense of curiosity, with a sense of openness, with a sense of acceptance and love. And so if we can meet, this is what made me think about this, if we can meet whatever's coming up with a sense of curiosity, what is here? And then a sense of openness. So we're not trying to push it away, we're not trying to stuff it down. Some acceptance and some love, some care, some compassion. This is a recipe for perhaps more freedom, more ease in our lives. So your question of acceptance kind of brought that up. Yeah, curiosity, openness, acceptance, love of whatever's present, Yeah, I mean, I just tend to see that we get caught, and it's a strategy that we learn or sometimes in infancy. I've been teaching this developmental trauma course at a university, and so much of this, like, not even from birth but in utero, so much trauma can be translated, and not even it's like not even if there's something that's happening medically or whatever, but just being a mother who is 6 months pregnant, being in an earthquake or a car accident, or there's some kind of traumatic event in the world can affect a baby, an unborn baby, and then from the moment of birth on. And so much of this And then there's this whole thing about epigenetics and how it can be, intergenerational, things that are passed down. So this idea of like, well, you have to get rid of these things about yourself that are wrong or bad. This is, Buddhism is not saying that, right? It's the opposite. But we build up that we have to either avoid or distract, or there's so much of these kind of tendencies, and so much of the process of healing is curiosity and openness and acceptance and love to all of our parts.
Your thing is rebel dharma
Mm-hmm.
and against the stream and all that stuff. The stuff, the thing about being open and curious is such like a positive, happy,
Mm-hmm.
optimistic kind of thing. And the shit that I struggle with the most is like really toxic and scary and takes me to very dark places.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just an interesting contrast to like approach something that gnarly with kind of this light sort of,
Mm.
and to me that's sort of a, against the stream, like no,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's usually like a societal sort of view of
Mhm.
oh, we're going against the stream because we're compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, even internally,
Mm-hmm.
there's like an against the stream thing that you're like
Yes.
taking these negative, toxic things and welcoming them. And
Yes.
with like this, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't have to be kind of yay, because it's often not, but there is a connotation with, yes, curiosity, openness, acceptance, and love being light and bright. And this is kind of precisely why I call this group Rebel Dharma, because it's rebelling against our negative bias. It's rebelling against our instinctual nature to either avoid or stuff or not face these kinds of things because it's so painful, yeah. But I'm glad. And because I agree with you. I mean, I think that's why I came up with this as Rebel Dharma, is because I find that the Buddhist teachings are not only societally rebellious against the stream of greed, hatred, and delusion, where greed, hatred, and delusion is all around us and being fed to us all the time, right? But also that kind of turning that love and acceptance in on ourselves is a rebellious act and challenging, not easy, versus the toxic positivity, which I think is also something that can happen out in, it can happen internally as well, which is an avoidance strategy, right? So there's that's dark and scary, and I don't want to talk about it. And then there's the I'm gonna pretend that everything is happy and joyous all the time, which is an avoidance strategy that I think I've seen with different people. This is what the Buddha called delusion, not seeing the reality of things. One of the, and I feel like, I've been reading a book called Bouncing Back, which is by a trauma and neuroscience specialist. It's a great book. It's about building resilience and tolerance and compassion. And so it's called Bouncing Back, if you want to check it out.
Is it a Buddhist thing?
She's a therapist. Her name is Linda Graham. She's a therapist in Northern California, and a longtime meditator, and kind of studying. She kind of took on Buddhism and neuroscience. I got to Stanford or something. She was doing some studies there. But yeah, just a lot of really great stuff about how we, this practice really opens our reservoir to building resilience and really literally changing neural pathways. So instead of, what what I was saying earlier is we're rebelling against our negative bias, which is instinctual, which is, hereditary, right? We're rebelling against our intergenerational trauma, Mm. Yeah. All right, we have like a few minutes if there's any other thoughts or comments before I wrap up for the day or the evening. So much of I feel like I talk about this all the time. It's kind of like I really only talk about one thing. And this is interesting because the Buddha was once asked, what do you teach? And he very simply replied, I teach suffering and the end of suffering. That is all. Because, there's all of these expounding of, astroplane and cosmic this and, kind of superpowers that one could get by meditation. And, all this was all happening at the time of the Buddha. And, there's all these other teachers and yogis and, meditation masters and really I just love that about this man and his kind of philosophical, kind of intellectual, practical understanding of what is the cause of suffering and what is the path to the end of suffering. And that's all he was concerned about. And he achieved his goal, which was to find out for himself whether letting go of suffering is possible. And then he taught for 45 years to anyone who would listen. But what made me think about that is I feel like I repeat myself in 100 different ways, but I'm pretty much saying the same thing all the time. Because really that's the crux of it. And can we like if I was to give, my like synopsis of all the Buddha's teachings, it is learn to be present with what is in order to reduce future karmic momentum. Right. So learning to can I be present with what is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral so that I can feel it, deal with it, address it here in the moment and not carry it forward. And so whenever we get a chance to do that, whenever we first hear about meditation or we first experience some lightening of our load, then that's where we begin. That's where the path begins for us. And what that means is like it could be lifetimes, or it could be 10 years, or it could be 30 years of unpacking that will have to happen. But as often as we can we be here with this present moment is, I think, this all of the teachings of the Buddha kind of coming down to that again and again. So that's your homework. Yeah. Can you be present with what is as it is, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? This center is run on the donation of those who attend. There is a bowl and a QR code at the door. And for those of you online, you can go to Against the Stream, and there's right on the top page, there's a donation button. And then also you can donate to me if you are so inclined. That I don't charge money for teaching. But there is a ability to donate. If that's something you'd like to do, you can Venmo me at Jason Murphy or No BS Buddhist. And thank you all for your time and your attention. And let's just take a moment and kind of gather all the goodness of our practice. Just taking it in, that sense of curiosity and openness, acceptance and love. And then knowing that all beings have a desire for happiness, for well-being, freedom from suffering. May we all do what needs to be done to find that freedom. Thank you.